Before we start the show tour, we're
Yes.
pretty excited at the moment, and I reckon before we launch into things, we've been nominated for an award and we're
Yeah.
finalists. So we've got to say something
Patrick,
about
yeah.
this. Don't you reckon?
I think so.
Okay.
Like, when is the moment to mention? Now, because we're going up to Sydney very
Yeah,
soon.
so if you listen to this when the podcast goes live on Sunday the 20th,
Yeah.
then we'll be in Sydney, and then the next
Yeah.
night we've been nominated and shortlisted, we're
Yeah.
finalists in the Australian Podcast Awards.
For the best entertainment podcast.
Yeah, I just thought we'd better say that before the
Yeah.
show.
I thought it was interesting, Patrick, that they didn't choose us for the best factual podcast.
They probably listened to it. Anyway, on that note, welcome to OK Smartass. This is the show where we put technology under the microscope. In this episode, I missed my opportunity to stow away on the Artemis rocket. Tor thinks I'm mad. But then again, she's in favour of fecal transplants, and she's also phubbing me. Now time to look at what's happening in technology innovation and the gadgets that make our lives so much more exciting. Hi, I'm Patrick Bonello.
And I'm Tor Roxburgh. I'm a writer and a reader and someone who loves change and future-focused thinking. Patrick, I might be phubbing you, but it's part of a noble lineage that involves bringing books to the dining table.
I'm a journalist. I have a marketing and graphic design business, and you might call it a long tradition. I just reckon it's rude, Tor. Come on, let's explain what phubbing is in the first place.
Yeah, look, it is phone snubbing. It's holding your phone, looking at your phone while you're in the presence of other people who you would normally be interacting with.
I hate this at dinner at a restaurant.
Okay.
I have a really dear friend of mine who is addicted to his phone, and I hope he's not listening, and because he'll know who he is.
Yes.
But he really does do that a lot. And so what we do when we go out now is, if there's a very small group of friends, this are the friends I travelled with overseas, we have this deal that if the first person to look at their phone has to pay for the meal. Everybody's
wow.
meal.
Wow.
So the phones automatically disappear. So I think it's a really good way to get around it.
Yeah.
I don't think people do it intentionally. And I was out after walking my dog, or whilst I was walking Fritz this morning, I went to the coffee shop, and there was a family of three. There was a father and his two children, and they were all on phones. Not looking at each other, just looking at the screens. And I thought about this story.
Yeah.
So now, but you're saying
Well,
it's okay.
in my family, it was always okay to bring novels to the table.
What a novel approach. Sorry.
My partner thinks it's incredibly rude.
I think you will.
To bring
So
a
I'm with
book
you.
to the table. I still do it, but now I read on devices. So I bring my novel in the form of an iPad, not so much a phone, to the table, which does feel like almost a step too far, but I still do it. But look, I do agree. Phubbing is unpleasant.
You know what I'm going to do the next time I go to your place for dinner?
You're going to bring your phone and
No, I'm
look
going to
at
bring my VR headset and use pass-through feature and see what you reckon.
Oh, okay. All
Okay,
right.
can we talk a little bit
Yes.
about what phubbing actually is in terms... Now, this is interesting because this was a book that's just been written. So this is a chap by the name of Yeslam Al-Sagaf, and he's written a book called The Psychology of Phubbing. And he looked at a lot of studies. There are 170 studies, as well as studies that he did himself. So this is quite a bit of information that's been gathered. So it's not just anecdotal.
Yeah.
What he's saying is he's drawing on hard facts. So let's look at kids. I talked about the kids with their father this morning.
Yeah.
Now, when they say parents phub their children, they're sending a message to them that they're not interested in them. Now, that then leads to feeling rejected, socially disconnected, and then they're saying lower life satisfaction and increased depression and anxiety in children.
Oh, that's awful, isn't
It's
it?
terrible.
Doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure it doesn't surprise listeners either. The other day I went and introduced myself to someone new in the neighbourhood, spoke to the wife, who was very friendly, and the husband was on his phone and did say hello, but was on his phone, paying attention to his phone.
And so the message that was being sent to you was, I'm not interested in you.
Yeah, it was horrible. And I
Wow.
don't, as a consequence, I thought, I don't like you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to get his
Yeah.
details and find out now and see if he does the same thing to me. So the other thing is children who are phubbed are more likely to become addicted to smartphones themselves.
Okay.
Wow, learned
Yeah.
behaviour. The
Yeah.
other thing is partners. Now,
Yeah.
your partner, you've just
Doesn't like it.
said it. He doesn't
Yeah.
like it, but you do it to him.
I do.
So what it means is there's going to be increased conflict
Ooh.
related to the use of technology, in this
Yeah.
case a smartphone. And evidently it makes him feel excluded,
Yeah.
which means less intimacy
Yeah.
and reduced satisfaction with the
Okay.
relationship tool.
Yeah.
So you know what you're risking here, don't you?
Oh, dear.
It even happens in the employment
Yeah.
situation as well. So if you're at work and your boss phubs you, that sends a very clear message that you're basically diminishing your employees. You don't think much about them.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense when you start to think about it. And then what's the message you're sending to your friends? I'm sure I've mentioned this on the show before, but I was at a Christmas function with my entire family, which is not
Yeah.
a big, but it was quite a big table of people. And I was sitting at the kids' end of the table, no surprise. And I was talking to my nephew and my niece, and we looked at the other end of the table. Every adult was on their phone,
Oh,
and it was
gosh.
only the kids and me who
Oh.
weren't on devices. So I felt pretty good, and we
Yeah.
laughed about
Yeah.
it because everyone
Yeah.
would have assumed it was going to be the other thing, but no, all
Yeah.
the adults.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So it's not
Yeah.
always the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incorrect disposal of lithium-ion batteries is causing problems in tips. By the way, you're not supposed to call them tips. I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Australia, you meant to call them transfer stations.
Oh, I thought they were only transfer stations because you transferred them to a tip. No, really, I did.
No.
Because they don't dispose of them there. I thought it's a transfer station because it's just a transit until it goes to a landfill, which is a tip.
Well, yes, I think that is true, but I mean, everybody calls them the tip.
I don't know. I
But
think we
they
need to have
get
another
quite
bet.
upset when
Because I've already got a movie ticket out of you
All
for the
right,
Aliens
okay,
one. No, really.
yeah.
I thought it was a transfer station just because it's being transferred. It's just a standing point or
Okay.
a holding yard, and
I
then
thought
it goes
it was
on.
meant to imply that they were doing something really ethical in terms of recycling.
Okay, in Queensland,
Yes, in Queensland there've been fires.
there's a fires. I know. I couldn't believe it. Up to 5 fires a day.
Can you believe
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. So waste management workers there are really putting their lives at risk
Yeah.
because the problem with these lithium-ion batteries is they explode, and that's why there's all these restrictions on them when you travel on aircraft.
Yeah.
So this is really a problem. But then it begs the question: how do we safely dispose of lithium-ion batteries? They're in
And-
everything.
Well, that's the other thing that the spokesperson was saying. They don't think people are being deliberately harmful. They think people are not realising that there are lithium-ion batteries in all of these different things.
Whippersnippers, lawnmowers, hand tools, golf buggies, vacuum cleaners, you name it.
Exactly.
They're in everything.
Yeah, maybe even nostril hair clippers. Who knows?
Probably. Oh dear. So, okay, it's putting workers in danger.
Yeah.
And I know that at our local Shire Council, you know, my sister-in-law in Canada laughs when I say
Is it
I
the
live in the
Shire?
Shire.
I
Yeah,
know.
she thinks I'm a hobbit.
Yeah, we've got friends in Singapore who go, we want to come to the Shire.
So workers are in danger, seriously.
Yeah.
And I found out, though, that we have an e-waste system at our Shire, at our transfer station, and it's free to use.
Yeah.
So you just get everything in the car. I'm just worried that my car might explode on the way there.
Oh,
I've got
yes.
so much stuff,
Yes.
but I do need to get rid of it. But the reason I haven't got rid of it is because I've known not to take it to the tip, and I wanted to do it ethically and make sure that a lot of these lithium-ion batteries need to be disposed of safely. Yeah,
So one easy way for people in Australia, if they haven't got it locally at their tip, is to take your batteries to Bunnings, and Bunnings say, please put a bit of tape on the top of them.
yes, you mentioned
Yes.
that. Mm.
Apparently that can have a residue charge.
And then it could cause
a fire.
Conduct. Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. So tape up the ends of the battery. Wow.
There is a batteryrecycling.org.au in Australia where you can search for where to recycle your batteries, and that does seem to be more for commercial use.
Okay, yep,
Yeah.
sounds good. So let's do the right thing. Check first before you go and dump your batteries because that's really important. Now, looking to the skies.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Patrick, I know you are.
I'm beside myself. I'm just kind of pinching myself. 2 failed attempts, and now the NASA's mega rocket has finally launched.
Yeah. Artemis 1.
Yeah. I can't tell. Even the logo is cool. I just love everything about it. I've never had a tattoo, but I'm thinking about it now.
Oh, no, really?
I get 1, 2, and 3. You know, as each launch happens, I could get like the first one, then this. Aren't you excited? We're going back to the moon.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I'm excited about Mars. And it is, conceptually a step towards Mars.
Mm.
I don't know how excited I am about the moon. I think I'll get more excited as I see the technology unfold, what they're doing that's new.
Yeah, look, one of the things, I guess, for people who, and to a degree, even my generation or our generation, because it was so long ago, the moon mission and the moon landing, it only seems like something that's been written. It's something that's historical. And it's such a long time ago, and yet it seems so futuristic in some ways too. I've got this real conflict because it was kind of way before me in terms of my reference of memory or anything like that.
Not way before me, I remember.
No, do you remember it?
Yeah, look, I was in primary school, and I think I've mentioned that people from NASA came and
that's right. In one of our episodes you did mention it.
And yeah.
And so, and I think I also mentioned that when they had the 50th anniversary, they replayed the entire mission as it unfolded, and I had it going live. So at 4 a.m. in the morning, I'd just get up and watch the mission, and I felt like it was really happening. My staff thought I was a lunatic because I'd have it running in the background while we were working. So it was like, oh, I'm so excited. Wait a minute, mate, we're about to land. And they're all looking at me like, what do you mean we're about to land? That was 50 years ago. Oh, I know, but it was 50 years ago to the second. And that's what I was excited about.
So they're not landing this time, though.
No, they're basically trialling the entire mega rocket out with everything. Everything's on board. They've got components, mannequins on board. Well, see, that's the thing. I personally would like to have been a stowaway. If I could have sneaked on board, I would have been a stowaway. Oh, look, everything's there. Oh. Why not just jump on board and say, look, I'll give it a try.
Food, Patrick?
Well, I could just take a packed lunch. Come on, Tor, wouldn't you? You wouldn't do it,
no,
would you?
No,
not in a million years?
Not it. Look, maybe if it was a properly crewed mission, I might. But no, not by myself in an empty rocket with mannequins. It sounds really scary.
It's only 25 days.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that'd be so exciting.
Yeah.
So the moon is my one bucket list thing that I don't know that I'll ever achieve.
Well, just keep living, Patrick.
So I don't want to go to Mars. I just want to go to the moon. Yeah. I want to stand on the moon and look back at the Earth I spoke to someone, I shouldn't admit this, but I spoke to someone yesterday who said, well, you know that the moon landing was true, but all the footage was actually fake. And so the footage was done in Arizona in the desert. And they believed that.
All right, that's interesting, isn't it?
One thing that isn't fake are drones.
Yes.
Because I love my drones. And interestingly, I've been flying the same brand of drones, and it's a DJI, and DJI is a Chinese company. Yeah. And they're really working hard at the moment to push back at the fact that the United States has recently been listed by the Department of Defense on their official blacklist for having close ties to Chinese military. Okay. This is a hard one for Chinese companies. Yeah. We saw issues with companies like Huawei, and that impacted massively. But what does this mean for a company like DJI? And what they've come out and said is, look, we do make the most drones in the world, consumer drones, but we're not responsible for what happens once the drone leaves our warehouse.
Yeah.
So in the same way, if someone is a drunk driver and gets behind the wheel, you're not going to blame Ford for what the drunk driver did behind the wheel of a car. I mean, a car is a weapon. You know, if I go and buy like a baseball bat or something to play baseball, but I use it as a weapon, well, the company that manufactures has got nothing to do with that. So as you can see, I'm sitting on one side of the fence here. I'm defending the DJI drone company.
Look, what you say is true, but in the context of Chinese policy, where Chinese nationals have got a kind of a legal obligation to the Chinese government to share information and do what they're asked to do, you know, maybe it's the back end that America are worried about.
Yeah.
Not the retrofit.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, they've come out and said that DJI has always opposed the combat use of civilian drones, and they are adamant that they are not a Chinese military company. So China is a really interesting country because you have this whole commercialization, separate companies and entities that are independent and are partially under government oversight, but they claim independence and they work independently. You know, we've seen this with companies like Alibaba.
Yeah.
You know, China wouldn't be in the position that it is if it didn't have entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to have a communist country with entrepreneurs.
Isn't it?
I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a love of a lot of things. I have a love of a lot of things Chinese because
Yes.
I've visited China many times. I do Tai Chi, I teach Tai Chi, and I see the people. And what I love about China is the people. I don't like the government, but the people are just people like anyone else.
Yeah.
If you walk down the street in China and you don't speak the language, but you smile at someone, it's the same language. You know, and I've had such beautiful experiences doing Tai Chi in China. And a lot of Chinese people see that as the ultimate form of respect when you embrace their culture.
Yeah.
So that's what I've experienced.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I am a little bit biased.
Yeah.
And I do fly the Chinese drone.
Yeah.
But that said, it is the best consumer drone on the market. It's been around for about 16 years.
I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder whether they're going to locate one of their manufacturing facilities offshore and try and do that separation that so many Chinese companies.
Yeah, it's an interesting,
have
it's a
engaged
quandary
in.
for them. Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, potentially I could attach a payload to my drone.
Yeah.
If I put explosives on my drone, I could fly it into something.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. Is it about the item or is it about the use of the item and the
Yeah.
person doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The pen is mightier than the sword. You can write some really cutting stuff. Now, talking about cutting
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah, hair.
I don't have to
Oh,
worry
God, what
about
a
cutting
stretch,
stuff.
Patrick. Yeah.
I'm really working on the segues this
yes,
episode.
You are. Yeah.
Tell us about hair regeneration talk, because I didn't know whether you were taking the piss.
Oh, no. Look, you know, when I told Patrick about this story, listeners, you know, he thought that I was just being mean and having a joke at his expense. But no, just as AI it seems to be involved in everything now, it's involved in hair regeneration. Oh, it's making me laugh. But okay.
You know you're not doing your argument any good at all. When you say you're not taking the piss and then you start to say, no, I'm not taking the piss and then laugh at me, you know, that kind of does your argument not well.
So chemical compounds disturb the hair growth, and natural antioxidants are what protect your scalp against those chemical compounds. So they've tried to synthesize those compounds and they've had sort of not fabulous outcomes. So now they've introduced machine learning into designing synthetic compounds, and they've trialled it on mice. Everything seems to be trialled on mice.
Mice are going to be the healthiest species on the planet, aren't they, eventually?
Mice with bald bottoms. And
okay, thanks. I'm not sure how to take the story.
It's done really well. It's regrown the hair. So we'll see. I mean, that's a while away from coming to humans, but hair regrowth via AI is quite a possibility. Would you grow your hair back?
Well, I think about Jason Statham, The Rock, and all those famous actors who have made their lack of hair almost their trademark, haven't they? You know, you look at these tough guys in Hollywood and you think, gee, that's kind of pretty tough. And for a while there, a lot of AFL football players shave their heads as well. So I think it's become less of a stigma. I mean, at the end of the day, I've never done the comb over, and I started kind of thinning up, I guess when I was in my 20s, which is pretty upsetting.
Yeah.
I think if I was in my 20s and this technology was available, I would have said yes, absolutely. But now that I'm a little bit older, a lot older, I don't think I would. Yeah. I mean, I also think that over the years I've saved so much money on haircuts and shampoo and conditioner, and I just do the whole clip down. So I just kind of shave my head anyway.
It's kind of a masculine assertion in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's embracing it really in some ways.
Yeah.
Except the first time I got my hair shaved, because I was thinning it out. I went back to work, and one of the sales girls turned to me and she said, "Oh, you look like a criminal."
Oh,
it wasn't the best reaction I was hoping for the first time I dived in, and because it is a big thing for a bloke to shave off all their hair.
Yeah.
And I know that there have been charity fundraising events where people have done that and it's been amazing when people do that, because it actually is a big thing, particularly when women do it.
Yeah.
Because that's a really ballsy
I'd like
move.
to do that one day.
Wow. And you know the one thing that you're either lucky or not lucky with is the shape of your head.
Oh, yeah.
Because some people have funny shaped heads, and I'm so lucky that I don't.
Yeah, you've got
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now, Tor, I was intrigued and revolted by the next story, and this is one. So I would stow away on the Artemis spacecraft before getting a fecal transplant.
Okay, so look, I think most people are probably familiar with the concept, but you have a biome in your digestive system. It's either a really healthy one that keeps you mentally happy and free of digestive problems, or you have a bad one. And sometimes the bad ones are caused by antibiotics, and there can be a proliferation of C. diff, and that can cause all sorts of unpleasant symptoms and can even be fatal in the extreme cases. So they've developed this process whereby you do a fecal transplant. So they harvest from a donor.
Wait a minute. If you happen to be squeamish, you need to fast forward this podcast about 5 minutes because this is going to get really messy. Okay, continue.
So normally it's like via an enema, but there can be an oral.
God, this goes from bad to worse.
And I thought, well, how do they actually do that? So I looked that up, and they make a fecal slurry. They mix it with glycerol. They put it in a centrifuge, and then they pipette it into a capsule, and then they encapsulate that capsule in 2 other capsules.
Oh, I hope there are a lot of thick capsules encapsulating that capsule.
It, and you can make 40 capsules from one poo.
You are not the best salesperson for this tour. I'm sorry. You have not sold me. I'm still getting on that spacecraft.
But this therapy can be really life-changing
for
people
I've got to
who
say,
are
yes.
unwell.
And I'm fortunate that I don't have a problem in that department. And if you had stomach aches and potentially really serious problems, and this is a way to remedy that. So
the therapy is really only being used for C. diff, but BiomeBank in Adelaide is the first company whose product has been approved for sale.
Right. So this is this has just been in clinical kind of trials and it's worked, but now they're saying we're going to commercialise it and make it into a product.
Yeah, they can supply people who are providing the therapy with the product. And apparently they've had really good quality donations during COVID because people haven't had colds and flu.
Oh, I see. So they've been so in terms of donor, I guess.
Yeah, and they haven't been travelling overseas, so they haven't picked up exotic bacteria. But now it's going to be harder again. Although, we are having another wave of COVID. So
well, I've just got back from overseas, so no one wants my poo.
No.
Sorry. Maybe you could sell yours, Tor.
They are working on synthetic fecal transplant material.
See, now the sales pitch is working for me.
Yeah, but they're not there yet.
Right. Okay. Can we stop talking about this and go to something else?
Yes. I don't think you're going to like this next story any better, Patrick, because it is a male contraceptive implant. So it's being trialled at Epworth Freemasons in Melbourne. What they're doing is they're injecting a gel into the Ven's deferens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it lasts for, I think, 2 years before dissolving. You and I had a little look at a diagram, trying to work out how they'd inject it.
The vas deferens, we're looking at where it is, and it sits quite high, just underneath the bladder.
Yeah, but it goes all the way down to the testicles. So
so I'm not sure whereabouts they do.
Probably into the top of the testicles.
Oh, see, now you're not selling me on this either. Yeah, I'm
not liking that either.
No, sorry. There's some places that man wasn't meant to go.
Well,
sharp objects, I should say.
They talk about, in the article, this as being kind of a revolution in male contraception and how great it will be that there are more options apart from condoms and vasectomy.
Look, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think we need to differentiate between safe sex and sex where there's no chance of having a child.
Yes.
Because I think that's a very, very distinct thing that we need to be mindful of. So, obviously people need to be safe when they practice sex.
Yes.
Practice makes perfect, doesn't it? So this is a couple of years away though, and they've done trials with 25 men, or
Yep.
they're going to do trials with 25 men. So it does. Look, I think it's probably about time blokes took up the challenge, and women have been
And look,
kind of responsible for a long time.
Presumably a little local anaesthetic, and it'll be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. We all go for
And you could have
flu jab.
your little what's it called? The test. At the same
You need
time.
to need to watch this video, the video of this podcast, because there's a lot of hand motions going on. Yeah, go to YouTube.
Prostate.
Thank you. Right. Sorry.
Now this next story, Patrick, the headline misled me.
Oh, the headline said
Yeah.
2 fathers, 1 egg, a new technique for same-sex contraception for men raises some tricky questions.
Yeah.
This is from Neo Life.
Yeah, very interesting article. And this is a publication that does look ahead to things that may happen in the future. So the actual research is into using what are called somatic cells. So that's a cell from just a general part of your body. It could be from your arm or, your lip or anywhere. And putting them into an egg cell, and through the natural tendency of, they're replacing nucleus, through the natural tendency of the egg cell to split its chromosomes to be ready to meet with the sperm. So they've done this successfully, and the implication why they're talking about 2 fathers, 1 egg is there's no reason why that original somatic cell couldn't be from a man instead of from a woman.
So potentially same-sex couples,
Yes.
male same-sex couples,
Yes.
could have a child
Yes.
together.
Yes.
That's
Genetically,
pretty-
their
Wow.
child.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So I suspect that the purpose of the research has been to improve options for IVF, but the implication certainly is that in the future, and they're talking about this technology which they're using on mice at the moment.
Man, those mice, now they can
I
breed
know.
together. They do everything. They've
And
got
have
hair,
hair.
they can breed, they don't have cancer. Wow.
Yeah, so 10 to 15 years before it's ready for people.
Yep.
And, possibly male babies.
Where's the fetus going to gestate?
Oh, well, yes. Look, either in a surrogate or it's going to be...
In a gel solution.
Yeah, it could be an external uterus.
Wow.
Because, in recent times, they've had lamb fetuses growing for a number of weeks in an external uterus. So.
Can I just shout out to all the Monty Python fans? They know the reference I'm talking to. So that's interesting, Tor.
It is interesting. How do you feel about it, Patrick?
Well, I don't have a partner at the moment.
No.
So it begs the question that I'd still need to find a partner.
But you've already got a genetic son, even though he's
Yes,
not.
that's true.
And
Actually, you're
daughter?
right. Because
Yeah.
yes, I do genetically. Because I'm genetically identical to my identical twin brother.
Yeah.
Then you couldn't pick the difference. If my niece or nephew did a DNA test, you couldn't tell whether I was the father or my twin brother.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stuffing with their heads now. I hope they're not listening to this
yes.
either. And no,
Or
it
your
wasn't
brother
me.
and
Or
sister-in-law.
my brother and sister-in-law. No, it wasn't me. I can tell you. No,
Yeah. I said it, not Patrick.
yeah, thank you. Yes, I've always thought about my niece and nephew that way because I've never had kids, but I look
Yeah.
at them in terms of, and what I love is that I can see myself in them as well. The traits that my nephew, for example, and I have a very close relationship, and it's kind of cool. And so I guess for me, I can see progeny in my niece and nephew, and I don't have the urge to have my own children because I kind of look at them as in some ways genetically they are my kids.
Now, I forgot that I did have a book recommendation
Oh,
for people.
I love your book recommendations.
Yeah, okay. So there is an author called Lois McMaster-Bugeaud, and she writes, I suppose you'd call them space operas. She has a whole world of planets and cultures. And one of her books called Ethan of Athos is about a planet that is totally inhabited by men, and they only produce male babies. So if anyone's interested,
right, there you go. Next
she's
holiday destination, guys. Yeah.
She's a great author, and she also, a lot of her planets use artificial uteruses
Wow.
for
Can I just say,
reproduction.
you mentioned the term space opera, and Star Wars is a space opera.
Mm.
Just so if anyone's out there and they're not a sci-fi fan, they might have thought you met people standing on a stage and singing the whole story. That's all. I'm just making an assumption there that not everybody likes sci-fi. That's all. But it is.
Yeah.
But I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And I recommended a podcast to you the other day about
Which I haven't listened to
yeah,
yet.
but it's basically how people in the Victorian era imagined the future. It was so interesting.
Yeah.
It was on their History Extra podcast.
Okay.
So from the BBC, really worth listening to as well. It was really, really good. They do a podcast every day, but that one was amazing. If you love the idea of Victorian sci-fi or how the Victorian era saw themselves, they talked about going to the moon and doing a dig and visiting. One guy was going with his wife and their butler on a tour of the solar system and going to the different planets. It was so cool. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Communicating is something that we all take for granted. And I guess by travelling recently for me, as you know, I went to Europe this year and that was amazing to reconnect with my family, and particularly after COVID, or at least the lull. I'm still being positive as much as possible. But I also connect every weekend with my close friends on VR. So one of them being in the UK, hi Ryan, he always listens. Now there's a thought process behind not just travelling in VR and being able to look at exotic locations and all that sort of stuff. Because I took a lot of 360 photos whilst I was travelling, and I put that onto my VR headset, and so I'm immersed in that scene whilst I'm. So I'm revisiting my holiday photos in 360, and I feel like I'm there. This is one step further. Because what they're suggesting now is that you would not just travel virtually, but the method by which you travel would be by inhabiting a robotic body where you can see and move and interact with the environment. So literally, virtual reality headset,
So
haptic feedback.
How is it different from a remote device?
Well, because you're that's exactly it. It's a remote device.
Yeah.
But they're talking about that device being a humanoid robot that you walk around in and you go on a tour.
Right. So you're in VR at home.
Yep.
And you've got a robot slave.
Well, no, you've got a robot mechanism that you're inhabiting. So you see through its eyes, you hear through its ears. When you look down, you see its robotic hands, and you can interact with the world. And the way that haptic technology is working now, when I play VR, I feel vibrations, and I kind of interpret them as interactions in the virtual world. But they're talking about, and we'll talk about this in a moment, kind of a robotic a skin that has electrical impulses that will allow you to feel touch. So you're inhabiting the robot and walking around.
You can imagine, it reminds me of the very mundane fact, but also interesting, that when you're in a device, the perimeter of the device becomes your perimeter in a way. Like when you're in a car and you're parking, you have a feeling in your body that the ends of the car are the ends of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I guess it would be the same feeling with the robot that you're virtually inhabiting.
I think even more so,
because
if you think about it, if there was a really definitive haptic response, if my cousin walked up and gave the robot a hug and I had a whole suit on that gave me haptic feedback, I could feel that hug and I could talk in real time. It would be amazing. Would you do it? And think about the carbon offset in terms of what damage it does to travel.
I don't think it'll replace travel at all, but I can
really?
imagine. I think it would be great for those social family situations, and it might also that you wouldn't necessarily travel for. So like a cousin's birthday, maybe you're not going to travel to America for it, but you could be there in the robot.
Yeah.
But also extreme or dangerous conditions. So
like the Artemis rocket, you would be the robot sitting next to me, wouldn't you?
I would.
Got it. Okay, just thought I'd throw that one in there. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the new haptic feedback that you can
Yeah.
get. So it's called WeTac,
Yeah.
and WeTac is almost
That's
like a
the
second
skin.
and it uses little tiny electrical impulses to mimic muscle movement, or to stimulate your muscles, to make it feel like you're touching. And we've spoken many times about the idea of, hot and cold and even taste potentially down the track as well. So you could even have a meal together.
And this fortnight, you've also been excited about headlights. Patrick, tell us, how can headlights be exciting?
Oh, come on, Tor. Broaden the scope of your world. No. Well, okay, so I was reading up on headlights, and Volvo has been trying to get a specific type of headlight, projector headlights, into the US market. What's different is, if you think about the very basic initial headlights, they were just a halogen lamp or whatever shining out, and you had low beam and high beam. Now we've got headlights that are LEDs, and they, as you're turning a corner, they can adjust so that you're kind of adjusting the beam to go around the corner a little bit while you're turning. These new headlights are so cool, like so cool. Think of laser projector, right? You're driving down the road, you've got high beam, everything's beautifully illuminated, and a cyclist starts driving towards you. Now, if it's a dark night, what you can do is the headlights will detect the cyclist, and they will lower the intensity of the brightness just on their face. So imagine a little shadow appearing where their face is, so you're not dazzling the oncoming pedestrian or cyclist or motorist.
Meaning you don't have to go from high to low beam yourself.
No, so everything's still bright except for the face of the pedestrian or the bike rider. So that's how smart this tech is.
Great.
Here's another one that it also can do.
Yeah.
When you stop and there's a pedestrian about to cross in front of you, you can project a crossing in front of you, a zebra crossing, and illuminate the road for them to safely be able to walk across. Because think about it, when a car stopped for you and their headlights are on, it's bright and it's dazzling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you don't know if there's other cars behind it or a cyclist.
Or if they've seen you.
Yeah. Whereas if it projects on the road, a zebra crossing, how cool is that?
Coincidentally, Will and I were walking down the street this week, and we crossed the road not at the crossing, and Will said the crossing should be movable. It should sense where we are.
He is so ahead of his time.
He is cutting edge.
And he doesn't fub either. While we're talking about Volvo and high definition and really cool headlights, interestingly, they've decided in Australia that they're going to phase out petrol power. That's a pretty big decision by 2026, so only 4 years away. Now, other countries are already doing this, and I know we've spoken about this in the past.
Yeah, episode 31, if
thank
people
you.
are interested.
Oh, there you go. Go back to episode 31 and we won't say anything else. No, but it's a great idea, obviously, but we've got problems in Australia as well.
Oh, lack of charging stations.
Lack of charging stations.
Yeah.
You know, in the Sydney Council at the moment, because we're going to Sydney at the weekend, if anybody wants to know, we're hopefully, we're part of an award ceremony.
Yes.
But, yeah, I know.
Did we mention that?
No, maybe at the start. In Sydney, they're saying, okay, get electric cars, but don't be drapesing your power lead from the front bedroom.
Yeah, there were some photos of people putting extension cords through trees and over pavements.
Yeah, not safe, is it?
No, which would be my only option.
Oh, yes, where you are. Yeah, you'd have to do the same thing. You can't get an electric car at all.
No,
Sorry. You can park it at my place.
Well, not until we get either public ones on the street or petrol stations start supplying charging stations.
Or a la Tesla, not the Tesla car, but the inventor. No, the inventor Tesla, where he wanted to beam electricity via the air, so you could actually just have electricity floating in the air and your car would just be charged constantly.
Or a solar car. Lots of
solar
options.
car, Well, Norway had the first solar car that went.
Well, coincidentally, Norway is the first country that's going to ban the sale of internal combustion engines.
Well, that's
for new
because they have solar cars. Why wouldn't they? Yeah.
2025.
Wow, that's pretty exciting, isn't it? So anyway, this is one thing that's vitally important. If we're going to have the infrastructure in place, that's the thing to do. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted by the fact that AI could actually read your mind.
Yeah, well, it might be a slight exaggeration.
Oh, really? I was so excited.
Look, it was only a few episodes ago in 37 that we were talking about AI looking at brain scans of people listening to Alice in Wonderland and I can't remember what the other story, The Old Man and the Sea. And that AI system was kind of doing a multiple choice thing, being presented with some possibilities based on reading the scan what people might be hearing. But now this is the University of Texas at Austin. They've gone further. They've had people in scans for 16 hours listening to stories, and I'm going to give you a sentence of the story the people heard, which was, that night I went upstairs to what had been our bedroom, and not knowing what else to do, I turned out the lights and lay down on the floor. So that's what the participant heard. The AI translated from the scan images. We got back to my dorm room. I had no idea where my bed was. I just assumed I would sleep on it, but instead I lay on the floor.
Whoa.
Really close.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is mind reading.
Yeah. Now, the researcher says, calm down, because no one's going to be reading your mind unless you're in an MRI machine for 16 hours. So, you can relax. But it's amazing.
We could do that on the Artemis mission. I'm sitting there for how many days? 24 days, not doing anything. You just clap one of those on the head.
But wow, imagine for people who are non-verbal.
Wow.
Incredible.
This is really amazing for people, as you say, people who are non-verbal or people who, for whatever reason, have got degenerative illnesses that cause them not to be able to then be able to speak. This would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Would be.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
great.
they'll have a portable machine.
Oh, that
eventually.
would be. Yeah, and then I could take it to the moon with me. You've been listening to OK Smartass, the podcast brought to you by a Nerd and a Smartass. I'm Patrick Bonello, and you can contact us by visiting our website at oksmartass.com or email nerds@oksmartass.com.
I'm Tor Roxburgh. If you like getting suggestions for books, podcasts and viewing, you can find my newsletter via Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you again in the next episode. If you'd like to help with the show, please do tell a friend, share a post online, or take the next step and support us via Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OKSmartass to sign up.
And thank you to our Patreon supporters and our listeners who get in touch. If you like what we do, make sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your friends.